Hello, Garland Nixon here, and hanging out with Jose Vega, and we're going to talk about briefly about the Democrat support for war with Iran. Let's talk. Hello. Hold on one second here. I went live on X and I ain't on X. We're talking with Jose Vega, and let me tell you something here. Let me see if I can find it. Um, uh, Caitlin Johnstone, I hope I got it, wrote an article that covers exactly what we're saying, and I should have it here. Basically, what she said, there we go. Let's start with that. Caitlin Johnstone. Democrats aren't resisting Trump's Iran war because they secretly support it. Democratic Party leaders are doing nothing to oppose Trump's war plans for Iran because they support those plans. They just don't want to be the ones pulling the trigger. And, let's start with this. Jose Vega is running for Congress in New York. He's running against one of the, you want to talk about an APAC puppet, Richie Torres. You can't get much worse than that. But I understand you got some tweets from the last. He's a little quiet this time, but I understand we might have some indication of where Jose Torres is, like we're supposed to be shocked. Read like some of the recent tweets from old Jose Torres. Jose, I mean from Richie Torres.
Yeah.
Jose.
No problem. Well, yeah, I mean, here's Richie Torres. This was the last time we striked Iran, June of 2025. He said, who would have thought the one issue uniting the far left and the far right is antipathy for the world's only Jewish state and sympathy for the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. There are voices in our politics who would gladly see Iran acquire a nuclear bomb if it meant freeing Palestine from the river to the sea. A catastrophic attack on Israel, after all, isn't a crisis to them. It's the fulfillment of fevered fantasies. That was one tweet he had. And then if I can just show one more here. You see that there, Garland? This one here, true de-escalation. Here we go. Yeah, you do. Okay, true de-escalation means Iran dismantling its nuclear program and ending its state sponsorship of terrorism against Israel. This is the same month, same week. Yet the loudest critics of Israel remain conspicuously silent as Iran expands its stockpile of 60% enriched uranium by 50% in just 3 months, even in the midst of negotiation. The charge of escalation is reserved exclusively for Israel, not for a threshold nuclear power openly calling for its destruction. The double standard is unrelenting. Now, what's he doing there? He is making his plea to the party masters. He is making his case to the people that have bought and owned him, which is AIPAC and others. He's clearly, back then, was very loud cheerleader and enthusiastic for war with Iran, and now he hasn't said anything. As Caitlin Johnstone put it there, Democrats do support Donald Trump's war on Iran, and that's why they're not saying anything, and that's why they're trying to make this stuff about other things going on that don't actually matter. A third of our military force is currently off of the coast of Iran right now. A third of $1 trillion defense budget is over there right now, ready to strike as Trump is mulling over whether or not we're actually going to do this. And it's the same lie again. Oh, they're building a nuclear weapon and we have to stop them. I thought that was the reasoning last time. And yet here we are again in the same place. What you got here?
Richie Torres, track AIPAC, profiting from genocide while taking AIPAC's cash. It would be bad enough if these people such as Richie Torres, it would be bad enough that they're pushing war, that they're pushing things that could lead us to World War III and nuclear war. But these scumbags are filling their filthy pockets with money. It reminds me of the Epstein papers, where not only are they doing all kinds of unthinkable, degenerate things, but they always fight. Like Mandelson was like, hey, JP Morgan, let me send you some info, some inside info on money from Britain. By the way, might you have a job for me later? There's Richie Torres filling his pockets. And no doubt, how this works. They're always setting up a golden parachute, Jose.
Yeah, and speaking of Mandelson, by the way, you heard he got arrested just an
Yeah.
hour ago? Okay, good. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think a lot of these things are interconnected, and we are seeing some sort of swift justice happening in places like the UK. You know, Mandelson is the second arrest in Britain, the first being former Prince Andrew, who was also arrested as well. I think there's a lot of moves being done right now. Tucker Carlson also just visited the White House today, just a day after Netanyahu leaves the country, and he just did this interview with Mike Huckabee, right? There is clearly some kind of communication, some kind of attempts going on to try and prevent a strike on Iran. That's the situation that we find ourselves in right now. And Richie Torres, of course, is supporting it. But here's something. We are starting something tomorrow. We are actually doing something tomorrow. We start petitioning tomorrow. We are going to have dozens and dozens and dozens of people come out tomorrow to knock on doors of here in the Bronx, where everybody's snowed in, everybody's home. And we're going to be knocking on people's doors, telling them they should get me on the ballot. And they're going to sign a piece of paper. And more importantly, we're going to be telling people about the war in Iran. And we're going to tell them that their incumbent, Richie Torres, is a giant cheerleader for war in Iran. That's what we're doing right now, and that's what the situation we find ourselves in is. We're in an ability to do something about this. We are going to expose this creep, Richie Torres, for what he actually is, a war profiteer. That thing you mentioned where he was profiting off of the genocide, he invested in Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, and L3 Harris at the same time. He was voting against a ceasefire resolution, against an arms embargo. So he was making money as he was voting to send Israel all the weapons they wanted, as he was voting to have mass murder and death of children. That's who my incumbent is. And here's the thing, right? The Congress has the power to act in a time of war, not the president. The Congress is supposed to be the one who decides if we go to war or not. That is the point of a war powers resolution. Why isn't Richie Torres, or why isn't any of these congressmen, jumping up and down and saying, hey, President Trump, what the heck are you doing? We have the ability to go to war, not you. We have to dictate that. That's because they're all feckless and they don't actually want to contradict this. Thomas Massey, Ro Khanna, they just put in a war powers resolution. Who is the person who decides to contradict them? Josh Gottenheimer, who's a Democrat out in New Jersey, and Mike Lawler, a Republican who's the neighboring district here in New York. Think about it. These people are completely disgusting. And it's time that we actually decide to do something about it, and people can help us by petitioning tomorrow.
What's interesting is the game they always play. And I could have told you when Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey put this thing together, which they almost shouldn't have to put it together. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, let me remind you what the Constitution says. That's all. Basically, this is what it is. It's not, what is the vote? It should be, hey, guys, Trump can't go without constitutional. And they should say to Trump, you'll be impeached, but they won't. But here's what's interesting. Wouldn't you just know that they'd have one Democrat and one Republican to you know what I mean? That shows you the game that they're working together. It's like, well, we got to oppose it. Well, we can't have two Democrats or two Republicans. Let's have one Democrat and one Republican, which tells you that the leadership of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party got together. And then, because I used to be on Capitol Hill a lot, you know what they do? Then they decide who it is. Well, let's see who's not running next time. Let's see who's got the strongest red or blue, but you know what I mean? And they calculate and have diabolical plots how they can screw over the Constitution and just say, okay, we got one Republican, one Democrat, they're both safe, put them in together.
That's right. Oh, and it's completely disgusting too, because there is a illusion of choice, as if there is something called the two-party system. I think you've put this together, though. There's only one party, and you wish you had a second party, because they're both united on the things that actually affect people's livelihoods. And, whether you're talking Richie Torres or Randy Fine, both of them believe the exact same things. And I call Richie Torres the Randy Fine of the Democratic Party, and Randy Fine the Richie Torres of the Republican Party. They're the exact same person, despite the fact that they have this feud. They're both appearing at APEC conferences. They're both funded by the same people. Okay, they both want the same things in the Middle East region. They are both completely disgusting. They are one and the same person, and we are going to expose that. And here's something else I want to let people know. Tonight, my friend Diane Sarah at 8 o'clock, she's doing a State of the Union address, and people can be able to tune into. She's running for president. She's running for president. And a lot of people are like, well, wait a minute, right now? Yeah, right now, because the country needs some leadership and some authority, and she's going to deliver that tonight. And people can tune in on my website. I'll be restreaming it, and she'll be streaming it on her thing as well. But another thing people can do as well, if they want to help us on the petitioning and they can't actually come out here, is they can donate. We need another $10,000 in order to be able to meet our financial goals to go through the petitioning smoothly. And if people can donate, they should by going to votevega.nyc, as he's here on my subheader here. That's if people want to see a country truly free of a duopoly. It has to start by taking responsibility for the people that you elect and help get elected. And it begins here in the Bronx, and there's a few other races I like too, but it begins here in the Bronx, and it can help us. It can help you, and we can actually kill the duopoly once and for all if we send a loud, strong, and clear message now.
And in fact, speaking of people who are coming from New York, from poor areas, pretending that there's some kind of a savior of the, going to save us from all the bad things. Did you hear AOC in Munich? Did you hear that crap about we must stand up against authoritarian? I'm like, wait a minute. The United States government, we just kidnapped the leader of a country, literally went in, murdered people, slaughtered innocent civilians, bombed a city, and kidnapped a man and his wife. And when I saw pictures of them, the wife had been beaten. Yep. She's like all bruised up and they're limping. And I'm like, so we went in and beat like a 70-some-year-old woman up, kidnapped the leader of a country, and AOC says we've got to stand up against authoritarianism. What a joke.
Yeah, and it's funny because she's over there. She had made a statement recently after the Munich conference where she was saying, a lot of people are criticizing me because of my foreign policy takes, but here's the thing: very few people are willing to stand up to the establishment. That's what she said. Very few people are willing to stand up to the establishment that sends people to die in war and to stand up to the bankers that bankrupt people for the rich. And so what I did was I said, oh, really? And then I just started putting in the interventions, especially the one I did on her, because I called her out 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years ago this year, where I said to her, oh, why are you funding Ukrainian Nazis? Why are you funding this war in Ukraine? Why are you not standing up against the war mobilization now? And then this woman had the audacity to go to the Democratic National Convention and lie to the American people that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were working tirelessly for a ceasefire, when we found out that they put very little pressure on Israeli officials to do any kind of ceasefire. It was completely disgusting and despicable what she did. And now she wants to complain and say very few people are standing up. Well, here's the thing. When she was asked that question about Taiwan, what are you going to do if China decides to invade Taiwan? What did she do? She started to hesitate. And she said, well, hopefully it doesn't come to that. The answer is simple. We are going to work with China on their One Belt, One Road initiative and ensure that no conflict ever has to take place in the world again. And we're going to join the Belt and Road, and we're going to join the BRICS. That's a very simple answer. The problem is she actually is more of a neoliberal war hawk than she wants to admit. You can hear that in the way she talks about Russia. She has no idea what is actually going on in the Russian-Ukraine war. She has no idea what's going on with China and Taiwan. And this was after weeks of prepping. She knew she was going to Munich. She worked with her foreign policy advisor, Matt Duss, for weeks. And that's the best they could come up with. Just completely disgusting from her. And she wants to run for president. I think people should listen to Diane Sarah tonight, and see what a real presidential candidate will actually sound like and look like.
Well, here's the thing. It's the old giveaway, too. Law enforcement and investigator, it's easy to answer a question. Answering a question is not hard. Hey, Garland, have you ever met the victim, the guy that was murdered last night? Have you ever met him before? This is easy. Never met him before in my life. Hey, Garland, have you ever met the victim before? Oh, who? The guy that was killed? I know he worked somewhere and I used to work there, but I never really. No, you're hiding something. If you ask me, the answer is clear. Have you ever met, I don't know, Billy Joel? I can say never met him. I love his music, but I never met him. Hack and sack, you better. But I never met the guy. I ain't got to hesitate. And when they ask her, what do you think about Taiwan? Well, how about those Bears? You think the Giants are going to do this yet? No. So she gives you her answer. A hesitation is here's what it means. It doesn't mean it's a lie, but it means that you are trying to hide something. There's something in your answer that you don't want people to know. And so what you're doing is called deception. And people are sick and tired of deception. They want to say, Jose Vega, if you get in office, what do you stand for and what are you going to do? And you tell them. And I'm sick and tired of these people that are hiding. I think Torres is hiding right now because you know what? He supports a war against Iran, an illegal, unjustified attack on Iran, and an attack on the American economy because it'll destroy our economy. He supports both of them.
Damn right. Absolutely. And that's the crazy part too. I mean, what you just said about AOC, yeah, she probably does support strategic ambiguity, which is our official policy of the United States, right? Well, we may or may not support Taiwan. The truth is, the reason there's all that aggression over there is because we keep giving Taiwan all these weapons and money, and we keep telling them we may back you up. And, you know, we like to play these stupid games saying that we recognize them as the real China when they're actually not the real China. You know, Jimmy Carter made it very clear. We recognize the mainland China as the China, not Taiwan. You know, and the problem is her, like other co-opted Democrats that we have seen throughout the years who genuinely mean well, they get eaten up by the system because they don't actually have an idea for what they want to see the future look like. They only know what they don't want or what they think they don't want. And then that's easy to manipulate people because they don't actually have any real policies because they're not guided by principle. They're guided by sincerity. And we saw that with AOC when she changed her vote on the Iron Dome way back, you know, from no to present because Nancy Pelosi told her to, and she started to cry about it. You know, that right there is when she sold her soul. And as a result, there was no more AOC there, just another lifeless husk. And the reason that happened is because she built her audience on the same neoliberals, okay, that decided that they're okay with a little bit of war here and there, and she decided to listen to them instead. And what I'm proposing here is I'm looking for people like your audience, you know, people of the independent media journalism, okay? There was something that happened that was interesting in 2016. Bernie Sanders and how you reacted to his cowardice for not standing up to the Democratic Party when he decided he was going to endorse Hillary Clinton, even after it was revealed that Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Convention conspired together to sidestep Bernie Sanders. That's what they did. That's what they wanted to happen. And as a result, Bernie Sanders, instead of telling the truth and saying, look, listen, this is horrible. This is outrageous. You know, that people in my party are working against me. This should have been fair. I have no problem losing to Hillary if it was fair, but this wasn't fair. No, he kowtowed. He bended over. And there was a split there of people who decided, you know what, maybe we'll follow Bernie, and other people who said, hey, this is outrageous and he's not telling the truth. You know, you can trace it back to that point. And I am looking for the people who recognized how wrong that was. And you have to understand, I was 18 when that happened. You know, Bernie was my first vote, you know, for the primary. I was excited to vote for that guy, you know, and then when he did that, I felt utterly betrayed. And I know there's a lot of people too. And that exposed how corrupt and how ugly the politics has always been. And I'm saying, let's reject that together. And I'm saying, let's do something about it and let's help get me on the ballot. Because we can go knock on our neighbors' doors all day tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday. And we can tell them this and say, we think like they do. We want something real, drastic change to happen. And they can help us make it happen.
Well, and you know, the thing about it is I know the Democrats gain because it's to them, it's a win-win. Okay, number one, they get their war against Iran, which they're 100% because their masters in AIPAC are paying them off to do that. But number two, it'll destroy Trump. Oh, it'll wipe Trump out right out. He's done. You know, as soon as that happens, gas hits $10 a gallon, people go bananas. And the parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, and a lot of Republicans want to get rid of Trump too. But the issue being that they don't give a crap that gas is going to hit $10 or $12 a gallon, or that it could go it further into some kind of a world war. They don't give a crap that it's going to destroy the lives, particularly who will hit the hardest: the poor people, the working poor, the working class, who are already right on the edge of survival or below the edge of survival. They don't give a crap about that. They're like, well, our AIPAC people say this is our chance to get Iran. Let's go get Iran. And they don't give a crap about the people in Iran. They're murdering men, women, and children. These people are ghouls, Jose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think about the people here in the Bronx who are like, hey, war with Iran? War with Iran? You understand that the power bill is 3 times as high as it was 2 years ago? You understand that like it's getting expensive to live, and you want to increase the military budget $500 billion? You want to raise it from 1 trillion to 1.5 trillion? Yo, how come every time it snows a little bit, people's apartments flood? Is there no federal funding to fix that? Is there nothing that we can invest in domestically? Or how about my plan for a cross Bronx train? We need trains that go east to west in the Bronx. They only go up and down, north, south, but cross Bronx transit takes you an hour. 15 minutes if you got a car, but how many people in the Bronx have a car? Come on, it's outrageous. And you're telling me we can't build this stuff? Oh, it's too expensive? It's too expensive? But we got $500 billion extra dollars to what? To kill people? What is productive about building bombs and bullets and tanks and armors and planes and shit? There is nothing productive about that. Nothing at all. And yet, if you are told, well, wait a minute, we want to build some schools, we want to build some hospitals. What is it? Well, the city's got a budget, the state's got a budget, the federal government's got a budget, and we already decided how our budget's going to be, and we're going to do this, this, and that. No, people are tired of it. People are tired of it, and they're deciding to stand up now.
Yeah, once again, Jose Vega's running for office in the Bronx, and he's got a great website, votevega.nyc. That's votevega.nyc. Make sure you go there. We are opposed to a war, and Jose's right there with us. We're opposed to war, not everywhere. We can discuss the end. Well, what about Ukraine? What about? There's no what abouts. The money that is being wasted, the lives that are being wasted. I mean, look, here's the other part. Your district is a lot of very, very poor people. Who's in the military on these ships waiting to get killed? Right? Yeah. A lot of poor people, a lot of people from Southern. I remember when I used to be a hovercraft pilot, and we kept our hovercraft at the Coast Guard yard. And I found out that there was a lot of people there from West Virginia, from Arkansas in the Coast Guard. And that's what I came to realize. Those were 2 of the poorest, and Mississippi. Those were like 3 of the poorest states. And guess what? The people in the poorest states will go in the military so they could get some education money, which they couldn't get, so they could maybe be there for 20 years and they were forced into the military, a lot of poor people, because that was the only option they had. You're living in Raccoonville, West Virginia, there ain't a lot of options. You got to get up out of there. Well, guess what? Guess who's on those ships waiting to get killed right now? Guess who's on those bases waiting to get killed? A bunch of poor Americans, people's sons, fathers, brothers, and they don't give a crap about their lives, Jose.
I know, and it's truly despicable and sad. And look, I would just say to people that if they truly want to reject this system, I would ask them to put their trust in me. And I know that's a big ask because people have felt so burned so many times, and it's difficult to trust. Even our mayor, Mamdani, I'm trying to give him a lot of grace. I'm trying to learn to trust him again, but people have been burned so much. But I am so confident in our ability to get right next to Richie Torres and debate him and expose him for what a fraud he is, that I am so enthusiastic. Look, we just had a blizzard here in New York City, and I trudged through that snow to come here to my office, to be able to talk to you and be able to talk to the people. I'm doing phone calls all day. We still need to raise another $10,000. And I would ask everybody here who's watching the program, who has friends, to help us contribute, help us donate what you can. We do need at least, if 100 people gave $1,000 or 1,000 people gave $100 or if 10,000 people gave $10, we could honestly meet our goals, probably till the end of March. Now, I know there's people in the chat that have already contributed, and I want to thank them. I see it, and I truly means the world to me. Whatever you can do, please do it. And if you can join us here in the Bronx and be a part of the manpower that we need, please do so. And people can go to NYC right now and help us confront Richie Torres face to face and watch him squirm in a place where he can't run away, and he'll have to answer for all the sins and everything he's done that has messed him up. And now we have an ability to put a real voice in the Bronx.
Thanks a lot, Jose Vega. Thanks a lot, you all. I'm going to run. Thanks a lot. I certainly appreciate it. VoteVega.nyc. My dear friend, Jose's doing fine work, and he's working to upset the apple cart, trying to turn over the apple cart. Thanks a lot, everybody. Share this on all your social media platforms. We're out.